They have to take it. And so that was the test. I'm going to share with you this result. Because it's so interesting to look at it in that way, to frame it in such a way that it's like you're talking, I didn't know anything about it, but I'm talking like them. I mean, I don't know anything about it because I'm not trained like them. I haven't gone through anything that they've gone through. And yet this, what I'm going to read to you here, was what I came up with. That then, there had to be, they always do this, like little fiddlings and modifications, and they wanted a little more of this and something or other that, and, so I adjusted a little bit. So I don't know where even the original manuscript might be now. As far as I'm aware, there's just this version that actually came out in the end. So I'm going to read it to you, and so you can hear what got developed about this idea, and then we might see where we're at when I'm finished with it. It's a way of talking about homosexual love. The double, an archetypal configuration. Jung never intended that his conceptualizations were final, or that he was always correct. Rather, he hoped that his tentative interpretations would be developed and revised. In this light, I would like to propose an archetypal concept, that double, to cover a soul figure with all the erotic and spiritual significance attached to anima, animus, but of the same sex, and yet not a shadow. Shadow was a very common way they interpreted homosexual love myths. They weren't going to go with an anima figure for men, they would go with a shadow figure. The figure, this figure of the double, has mythological examples and is felt in psychological experience. It is lost if named either shadow or anima animus. The double is that set of characteristics which give rise ultimately to our conscious awareness of identified sex role. Although the double is much more than our paltry social idea of manness or womanness, and is entirely lacking in sexist connotations. These are added on later. The double and the anima animus are equal and complementary. Anima and animus, by the way, this is technical discussion, for just so you're not aware. It looks like just regular lingo, but it is technical discussion. Anima slash S, which is the way it looks in the text here, is because I'm discussing what Jung calls what we consider the contrasexual figure, the symbolic personification of the archetypal value of the contrasexual and the unconscious. That's the whole notion of anima animus, separate from shadow. If you don't understand these concepts technically, the paper I'm reading to you won't read as a paper. That's okay anyway. We'll read as a kind of little piece of literature, which is all right. I just wanted to inform you why I go anima animus, because it's not even that, it's anima us. If you don't understand what that means, it sounds silly. None of this is silly. This is very careful discussion. Every word in here is very carefully parsed out, just to let you know, because I'm just kind of babbling it out here. Double is that set of characteristics which give rise ultimately to our conscious awareness of identified sex role. Although the double is much more than our paltry social idea of manness or womanness, and is entirely lacking in sexist connotations, these are added on later, the double and the anima animus are equal and complementary, and form a whole androgynous in nature. For example, the anima contains the archetypal images of mother, daughter, sister, lover. The male double then contains those of father, son, brother, lover. Just as a woman can serve for projections of the anima, so a man can serve for projection of the male double, and vice versa for women. The double, as well as the anima animus, can be part of a transcendent function. Transcendent function is a very key Jungian concept, which I will spend a whole discussion to explain to you. With this new insight, we finally have a satisfactory meaning for Aristophanes' love myth of the round beings, as told by Plato in the Symposium. Quote, "You must begin your lesson with the nature of man and its development. For original nature was by no means the same as it is now. In the first place, there were 3 kinds of human beings, not merely the 2 sexes, male and female, as at present. There was a 3rd kind as well, which had equal sharers of the other 2, a man, woman, hermaphrodite. Secondly, the form of each person was round all over. Now, they were of surprising strength and vigor, these bigger beings, and so lofty in their notions that they even conspired against the gods. Then Zeus, putting all his wits together, spake at length and said, Methinks I can contrive that men, without ceasing to exist, shall give over their iniquity through a lessening of their strength. I propose now to slice every one of them in two. Each of us, then, is but a tally of a man, and each is ever searching for the tally that will fit him. All the men who are sections of that composite sex that at first was called man-woman are woman courtiers, whence likewise are derived our man courting women. All the women who are sections of the woman have no great fancy for men. They are inclined rather to women. Men who are sections of the male pursue the masculine, unquote. Freud, Jung, and other theorists have made much of this myth in extolling the spiritual basis of heterosexual union. If, however, we do not interpret the story as a biological analogy, meaning a literalistic analogy, I'm just beginning, by the way, to distinguish points that actually make much greater differentiation in the way they're said right here. I'm sorry to butt in to let you know. That's a very vague way to say something. But it's the beginning of trying to be what we're talking about here tonight, take a gay-centered view of gay love. If, however, we do not interpret the story as a biological analogy, that some are born homosexual and others heterosexual, then we may see it as an analogy regarding the collective unconscious of humanity, of anima, animus, and double symbology. Then, as Plato intended, we see the profundity of love as it is stimulated through animus and double, to be a reunion restoring that wonderful primal state. Anima, animus, and double are equal in all process mechanisms. Psychically, both can serve as, quote, soul guides, unquote. Both appear in literature, mythology, etc., and are involved in the process of individuation. That's really the big topic, really, that becomes the whole rest of my career's development, is that very topic there. How is the double involved in homosexual individuation? Double is revealed in mythology in such hero pairs as David and Jonathan, Achilles and Patroclus, and Gilgamesh and Enkidu. Since this latter myth is so rich in symbology, let us use it as an example. The Epic of Gilgamesh from the Sumerian civilization of the 3rd millennium BC is perhaps the oldest surviving piece of secular literature. It recounts the adventures of Gilgamesh, king of the city Uruk. Gilgamesh was 2 parts god and 1 part man, endowed with great beauty, a perfect body, courage, and wisdom. As the story opens, he is in the prime of life, yet discontented for lack of a love and a purpose equal to his abilities. For this reason, he storms about the town, fighting and wenching, while cries go up to heaven in lament. When the gods hear Uruk's lament, they call out to the goddess of creation, You made him, O Oruru, now create his equal. Let it be as like him as his own reflection, his second self, stormy heart for stormy heart. Let them contend together and leave Uruk in quiet. Enkidu was created in the wilderness, quote, innocent of mankind. He knew nothing of the cultivated land, unquote. He lives with the beasts and is met at the water hole in 3 days by a trapper who was frozen with fear. He went to his house with the game he had caught and was dumb, benumbed with terror. His face was altered like one who has made a long journey, unquote. This suggests the imagery of the unconscious as the home of Enkidu with its wildness and wild things. The trapper entering this realm was shocked by the awesome power and magic of Enkidu, or as Jung would say, his numinosity. Then Enkidu is civilized. He is seduced by a harlot brought by the trapper. With this human contact, Enkidu is changed. The wild beasts all flee from him because, quote, the thoughts of a man were in his heart, unquote. Enkidu learns to help the trapper, and then the harlot takes him to Uruk. The archetypal personification is brought into conscious awareness, perhaps by an anima figure. Parenthesis, it was good advice that she gave. Parenthesis. Before Enkidu arrives, Gilgamesh dreams of him. Dreams are significant in this story, predicting each important event before it happens. Thus, dreams are seen as a doorway into the darkness from which emanates wisdom and knowledge of what is to come. Quote, now Gilgamesh got up to tell his dream to his mother, Ninsun, one of the wise gods. Mother, last night I had a dream. I was full of joy. The young heroes were around me, and I walked through the night under the stars of the firmament. And one, a meteor of the stuff of Anu, fell down from heaven. I tried to lift it, but it proved too heavy. All the people of Europe came around to see it. The common people jostled, and the nobles thronged to kiss its feet. And to me, its attraction was like the love of woman. And they helped me. I braced my forehead, and I raised it with thongs, and brought it to you. And you yourself pronounced it, my brother. Unquote. Here, the double is near realization for the ego, Gilgamesh. And this nearness is experienced as profound, godly, joyous, and, quote, like the love of woman, unquote. And Ninsen, in reply, explains the purpose of this figure, quote, what you have seen, the star of heaven over which you bent as over a woman, this is the strong comrade, the one who brings hope to his friend in his need. He is the strongest of wild creatures. He was born in the grasslands, and the wild hills reared him. When you see him, you will be glad. His strength is like the strength of one of the host of heaven. This is the meaning of your dream. Unquote. The double is a powerful helper, full of magic to aid in an individual's struggles. In order to emphasize this in the story, Gilgamesh reports another dream, and Ninsen gives another interpretation along the same lines. Gilgamesh concludes, quote, the lot has fallen to me, so shall the comrade be mine, unquote. Enkidu, quote, whose beauty is like a god, unquote, comes to the city and challenges Gilgamesh to a match. In their fight, Enkidu is thrown with a turn, and he acknowledges Gilgamesh as the strongest. They are now united in deepest love. And it is then that Gilgamesh feels called to embark on great adventures, quote, and without doubt what Homer calls a fury inspired by a god in certain heroes is the effect produced on lovers by love's peculiar power, unquote. That's from the symposium. In these adventures, the two always help each other until their hubris, or arrogance, finally catches up with them. If we see the Epic of Gilgamesh as a hero myth, Enkidu comes to rescue the hero from his barren life and help him on with his destiny. Qualities of Enkidu, such as that he is covered with hair, signify his contact with less humanly conscious animality. Yet he is certainly not shadow, but mirror of Gilgamesh's beauty, strength, and wisdom. Also, he is certainly not a self figure. For his equality, self is the Jungian idea of the center, the circumference and center of the totality of the psyche. He's certainly not a self figure for his equality, parenthesis, almost a younger brother, citizen, parenthesis, his hubris, and his death deny, that archetypal figure. He is, however, very manly, although loving, warm, and often tender. Enkidu brings out the best in Gilgamesh. The double often appears with an aura of beauty, youth, and perfection, or near perfection. Unfortunately, it is apt to be mistaken simply as a symbol of the ego, which it partially is, the ego resting on the double, or a symbol of the shadow, or of the self, all of which it may also be. This haziness is due to the fact that the contents of the collective unconscious are not distinct and separate, but merge into each other and may be difficult to fix definitively. But psychologists have exploited this characteristic to hide realization of the double from themselves and others. Aspects of the double. Let me illustrate a few of the qualities and functions that I see in the double. It is one's deeper support, one's partner leading on, helping. We see this in many stories, such as the Iliad, for example. Achilles would not have raised his weapons for the Greeks, had not Patroclus fought Hector and been slain by him. The Trojans would have been victorious, but that Achilles, as explained by Phaedrus in the Symposium, quote, bravely chose to go and rescue his lover Patroclus, avenged him, and sought death not merely in his behalf, but in haste to be joined with him whom death had taken, unquote. In the same vein, in the Bible, Saul would have killed David, but for Jonathan, quote, my brother Jonathan, very pleasant hast thou been unto me. Thy love to me was wonderful, passing the love of woman.